Here's another example of an LL1 predictive parsing problem. I want to show you a different representation of it because if you're doing some research online, you'll see the tables represented in different ways. You'll notice the table that we have here, though, just has numbers in them, and frankly, it's just like what we had before. It's just the numbers represent the sentence instead. So if you look at, if we have a symbol of an S, and the first item in our input is a 1, then it's going to be replaced by this entire sentence, number 1, of the if expression, then else, and from there. Now also, like we've had before, is that we still have a stack, we have a given input, we have to be given that, and then we're going to have our actions after that. Remember, our stack has a $sign in it by nature, just to let us know that, frankly, we're going to match at the end of the input, when hopefully we're done with everything. Our input's going to be anything that we maybe will match. It's not always a guarantee. This one will, but ones that I may give you for a test or for a problem may not be. And the action is going to be our popping from the stack or reducing our input. So let's get to it. So in our first item that we have here, we have the stack given with our $sign, our total input. Well, what's our first action? Our first action, no matter what, at first, is always to go ahead and give us the start symbol. And that's going to push our start symbol onto the stack, and it'll look like something like this. Here's where things get more interesting. Just like the last problem, we have our leftmost item that we're going to look at. And we're going to look at our item in our stack. And we're only going to do one item in that look ahead, by the way, because that's our LL1. So we have the start symbol and we have our first word, which is while. So let's go to the table. So here we do our cross-reference between our S and our while. And we get the number of 2. And that means that we're going to replace, now listen carefully, our symbol of our S, and we're going to replace it with the while expression do S. Now notice I said that we're going to pop. That's going to be our stack, and we're going to push that entire item onto our stack. Now, nothing happens with the input quite yet. So here's our match now. We have our got rid of our S. We went ahead and supplied everything else from that sentence. Here's our next interesting point, though, is that now we have a match. We have a while here, and we'll have a while here. Because of that, we're able to pop, which means that, again, the pop and push is only to the stack. The next is actually the only item that interferes with the input. What that means with next is that we are going to, frankly, move from that one look ahead to the next item in our look ahead from there. So you'll notice that in the next line here, both whiles disappeared. So now we have a new set of items to look at. Now we have expression and ID, so let's take a look. That tells us that we need to replace expression with, well, ID. So that's going to push our ID, but first we need to pop the expression. And again, note both of these are to the stack. Now we have a match with ID and ID, so we're going to pop from the stack and we're going to move up in our input. So that's what we're going to do next. Notice we have another match. That's sweet. So we have a do and a do. Always keep an eye out for that match. So we're going to pop from the stack and push up in the index or input. Now we have an S and we have a begin. Well, we definitely don't have a match, so let's take a look. S and begin give us a statement or sentence number 3. So we're going to pop the S symbol and push begin statement and into the stack. That's exactly what we do. First, I'm going to check for my match, and I do. Sweet. So I'm going to pop and go ahead to next. Again, next line, check for a match. I don't have it, so I have a statement and begin. So I got a statement and begin in the table. That tells me for sentence number 4, I need to replace our statement. So I'm going to pop statement and push in our S semicolon statement. We have S semicolon statement out in there with N still at the very, very end. Be careful on what you pop out of the stack, by the way. We don't have a match, so now I go to the symbol S and begin. I'll look at the table. It says for me to pop S and replace it with begin statement and. So notice S has been taken care of and it's been replaced with begin statement and. Notice the rest is still in there. That stack's getting kind of big, isn't it? Well, that's all right. We'll fix it up here in a second. We have begin, and we do have a match. Now we have the statement and end. Well, if we look at statement and end in the table, they certainly don't match down there. Statement and end tells me number 5. Ooh, that's an epsilon, so that means nil. That's awesome. So that we get to go ahead and put a null in there. Now we do have a match with end and end. We have another match with the semicolon and semicolon. Statement and end. So we go to statement and end, tells me epsilon, just kind of like we did before. Go ahead and get rid of statement. Now we have a match of end and end. And then, yes, this is exactly what we want to see at the end of this, is $2 signs. Now remember that input $sign was all the way at the end at the very, very beginning, so it's not like it magically appeared. But that $sign is stacked. You've seen that from day one. So that's what you're praying for, but you may not always get it. So just a heads up.